This is Philip Rostek speaking. This is my life part 8. And last time we ended up with a mention of me getting a heart transplant and how I thought that I heard music notation a little bit clearer in my mind than I had done in the past. I took piano lessons when I was 16 years old and had kind of kept up in a way without any lessons or without any formal training, simply improvising. And I would play Chopin's Prelude Number 4, which is an easy kind of piece in a certain kind of way. I would play that over and over again, and it would help me address the idea of sound and the transitions between sounds. 2 years after my heart transplant, something like that, there was an opportunity to involve myself in a ballet about heart transplantation that was organized by Maria Caruso, who had a ballet company called Bodyography here in Pittsburgh. And I was happy to be involved in that production. There was a surgeon involved, and they danced with us on stage with Maria and members of her troupe. And there was, I think, 5 other heart transplant patients that had stage appearances. I was one of them. It was a big deal in my life. Not only was I experiencing the euphoria of still being alive and feeling good after I had almost died. Transplantation is a wild experience in that it peps you up so much to get an efficiently pumping organ to replace one that wasn't functioning hardly at all. It's an amazing experience. It's hard to describe, but in the ballet, it kind of described it pretty well, and Maria did a good job working with the doctors and witnessing an actual transplant and working with us patients in order to prepare a very unique performance that was put on at Byham Theater, a nice theater, a big theater downtown Pittsburgh, and it was an experience of a lifetime, to be sure. Afterwards, I enjoyed making up some music, and Maria actually danced that out with me on stage at Kelly Strayhorn Theater in East Liberty here in Pittsburgh. To have confidence enough in me as a composer to do that was very complimentary, and was a very cool thing for me to be able to participate in. Bodyography has its own identity as a ballet troupe due to the strength of Maria's artistic abilities. As an artist myself, I think that my ideas lend itself a little bit more towards what might be called dance theater. In my research, I came across Rudolf Laban, and I liked very much his ideas, and it turned me on to this Monte Veritas, I think that's the name of it, or Verita, the Mountain of Truth. I forget the actual name of it, which was a kind of spa in northern Italy on the border of Switzerland, where a bunch of idealistically motivated people got together around the First World War, maybe before that, to figure out vegetarian, holistic lifestyles that would go against what they perceived to be fascism that was starting to gain traction in Europe at that time. Mary Wigman was an important dancer that is identified with that period of time. Mostly, though, it led me to join YouTube, and by happenstance, I found this Yamaha keyboard at a Goodwill, and I asked, "Does it work?" And they plugged it in, and it worked, and so I bought it. And college kids helped me put it together with my computer, an Apple desktop computer. An important personality that helped me do that was Nick Confer, who Duquesne student, who knew a lot about music and also computer technology. I used that keyboard together with a very old version, probably the first version of GarageBand that I like very much, and I put the electronic sounds that are available there together with playing the keyboard, and in a way I imagine myself to be a composer. I did compose music for a play by Ned Dickens called Ikara that was performed at Chatham College. It was directed by Tavia La Follette, and that was my kind of first experience of playing music live in front of an audience. The music that I make up for YouTube, in my own mind, I imagine it being danced out in a ballet form of sorts, in my own mind, even though that's unlikely. But it does keep me busy, and I probably have about 1,500 uploads to YouTube at this point, and have several nice friends that I communicate with. It's a nice thing in my life. My own artwork has branched out. I do things other than St. Francis, although I return to St. Francis over and over for subject matter when I'm really serious about putting my best foot forward creatively. But it was probably in the mid-'80s that the best work that I will ever do has already been created. I should mention that as a member of the Dax group, when I wrote Theory, we did some really kind of interesting work. La Plaisir du Texte, that was organized by Roy Ascott, was presented at the Muséum d'Art Moderne, if I'm saying it incorrectly, I'm sorry, in Paris. And then we were involved. Bruce Breland brought us to the Venice Biennale in 1986, and I was able to craft our opening statement that was adapted from a prayer of St. Francis, where I kind of like substituted the word God for personal freedom. That was then followed up by a bunch of superlative adjectives. The Maverick group that I worked for thought that was okay, and it was a great experience. Bruce Breland was a major factor in my life in so many ways. I'm not that well traveled. I've pretty much lived in Pittsburgh my whole life. two experiences that I did have traveling abroad. Both were precipitated by knowing my graduate student friend, my great friend Shalom Newman, who put on a show called Toxic Paradise at Diagonale Gallery in Paris. It was great fun, and we also, Marcia and I also went to Sardinia for a show that was presented at Gavoy, where about 50 artists from all over the world went to a deserted monastery in Sardinia and used only indigenous materials that were found there to do expressive things. It was called The Serpent of Stone, and it was the brainchild of Sandro Darnini, who I met through Bruce Breland, and it was a very great opportunity to not only learn from the artists that were there, but to simply experience the culture of the people from Sardinia, who were so generous. And speaking of generosity, I should mention my friend Shalom. He has been committed since I've known him in the 70s to a concept that he calls fusionism, which has to do with multi-sensory things that are combined together seamlessly, and he's made an impact with that kind of philosophy, just like he said he would when I first met him in the basement of Margaret Morrison building at Carnegie Mellon. My wife Marcia is well versed in the arts, having worked at the Frick Fine Art Library, part of the University of Pittsburgh, for 46 years. She knows a lot about artwork. When I was involved in that art show at Sardinia, we spent a week in Florence, where she showed me so many things. We traveled to the Duomo, Santa Croce. We stayed at a wonderful place called Pensione Bencista, halfway between Fiesole and Florence. We traveled to the top of Fiesole, where there's a Franciscan monastery there, and it was interesting to me that Michelangelo's David had top billing in Florence, but St. Francis got the best location on the top of a mountain where you could see for miles, 360 degrees. It was so appropriate, so culturally perfect, and I think maybe that's a good place for us to pause.